The following is a production of Stevenson Media. H-Town, what it do? I am Nick Stevenson, the president of Houston Sports. That handsome gentleman to my right is Ruben Calvillo, aka Mr. 713. Welcome to episode 43 of the Twin Toros podcast. Ruben, it's been a minute, baby. How you feeling?
Man, it has been a minute. A lot of things going on my part. Nothing wrong with you though, bro. Still fully invested into this, but now
Absolutely.
they got me working here, man. 6 out of the 7
Ooh,
days.
gotta get
My
that
only
money.
off day is on Wednesday now, so
Trying to
and
get
I
that
accidentally
money.
made myself important in my job. Now I got to set keys. So, dude, everything has been everything's been moving fast. But hopefully, once we get out of schedule, man, we could get right back on track.
Yeah.
Weekly
Absolutely,
Houston
man.
Texans content.
For sure. And man, I can't hold you trying to get the bag against you, for sure, man. But the good news is it is the off season.
Hell
So
yeah.
the information, it's still coming in, but it comes in a little bit slower than during the season. So I'm excited to do this show, man. The Houston Texans have 6 picks in the upcoming 2005 draft, including number 25 overall in the first round. They're picking 58th, 89th, 127th, 167th, and 243. So you and I are going to talk today about what we, as Houston Texans fans and members of the media, believe they should do with the very first pick they have in the draft. We talked about it ahead of time. You're going to convince me why you think they should take a wide receiver. I'm going to try to convince you of why I think they should take an offensive lineman. And I think this is going to be a fun show. Before we get into it, man, I'm going to remind you guys really quick to follow our YouTube channel. You can follow Ruben at 713 Houston Sports on X, on IG, and on TikTok. And you can find 713 Houston Sportscast on YouTube. Please go follow his channel, follow all his social medias. I will leave his links in the description. And you guys can find me at Houston Sports State of the Union podcast right here on YouTube. I'm also on X. I'm also on TikTok. I will leave all of my links in the description as well. We appreciate you guys your support so much. If you're following us through ESPN Houston, we want to thank ESPN Houston for sharing this platform with us. And make sure you rock with us on our personal channels, man. All right, Ruben, let's get into it, man. You want the Texans to take a wide receiver. Tell me why.
Well, yeah, for sure I do, but I don't want to see the Houston Texans trade the 25th pick away. I want to take advantage of a rookie contract, an effective rookie on their rookie deal. You could argue that we should not have made the trade for Stephon Diggs because you know what that pick last year ended up becoming for the Jacksonville Jaguars? Brian Thomas Jr. And he ended up having a 1,000-yard season and was, one of the best rookies out there. This year, if the Houston Texans do hold on to 25, I would like them to go wide receiver. Now, there are some guys that I wouldn't mind. I can go either way. So one of them, I mean, we've been talking about him, for the, for some years, and that is Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver out of Ohio State. He's 6 foot, 202 pounds. According to Pro Football Network, he is a well-built slot receiver who projects as a reliable chain mover at the next level. He offers good overall size for the position and has good strength and athleticism. You are reuniting him with CJ Stroud. They had a fantastic year together. Egbuka is coming off of a national championship. And when you look at what new offensive coordinator Nick Caley brings to the Houston Texans offense, you look at what the Rams have, what the Rams call for their wide receivers to do, and that is run great routes. That is able to be a willing blocker, find the soft spots in the defense, and that sounds exactly like Emeka Egbuka. Another wide receiver I could, see them going after is someone who just had a damn good combine, and that is Matthew Golden out of Texas, 5'11", 191 pounds. Just speed and route running in reliable hands. Matthew Golden, he might be wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 in this draft. But if either of those two are there at 25 for the Houston Texans, I'm immediately running to the commissioner and writing down their name. I am sick and tired of being in the playoffs the previous 2 years and only having Nico Collins out there at the wide receiver spot.
Let me ask you, you mentioned you mentioned Golden might be gone. Would you be willing to trade up in this draft to get the wide receiver you want?
I mean, if you're gonna trade up for Golden, or if you're gonna trade up for Ibuka, I'm assuming that the other option is not there. And I am not one opposed to, if you want your guy, go get your guy. I wouldn't mind trading up in the first round if the Texans want to get a Matthew Golden or a Mecca Ibuka.
Okay. So I take it you're not thrilled with Luther Burden III?
I'll have to do, more research, but I'm sticking more towards towards those two.
Okay. That's one of the reasons I'm going to try to convince you that I think the Houston Texans should take an offensive lineman, because I think there's quite a few wide receivers that you could sit at 25 and get, and you might even be able to catch one in the second round with your 58th pick. For me, you might.
Okay.
You might, just because of the amount that are in this draft. You got Tez Johnson. I know he's really small, but he kind of reminds me of maybe, because I'm assuming you want a wide receiver, number one, because like you said, by the time we get to the playoffs, the Texans usually are just down to Nico Collins. The Tank Dell injury all obviously puts a premium on them finding some more depth at the position. Are you assuming that they take this draft pick because they're not bringing back? Why am I blanking now? Stephon Diggs.
I mean, whether you bring back Stephon Diggs or not, you should still heavily prioritize the wide receiver spot. It doesn't just take one wide receiver to get it done. It takes 2 to 3. And, knock on wood, if there's any injuries, you like knowing that you did double dip in free agency and the draft, and maybe you have some more bodies available, for you at the end of the year. With Stephon Diggs, I'm kind of past the train of him returning. He has a lot of drama surrounding him on the outside world, with all these Instagram models and Cardi B. So, wonder if I want to add that situation here in Houston, because I'm trying to get to an AFC championship. I'm trying to get to a Super Bowl. But at pick 25, to me, it's either Ibuka or it's Matthew Golden.
Okay. I like that. I tend to agree with you as well. Mm-hmm. I'm leaning towards not bringing Stephon Diggs back, because I think there's just other replacements. And the reason I'm going to argue that I think the Texans should bring in an offensive lineman is because I don't care who CJ's throwing the ball to. If he doesn't have time to do it, it doesn't matter how good those wide receivers are. And the Texans' offensive line was terrible last season.
Terrible.
And so I think for that reason, also the reason of, look, in 2 years, Laramie Tunsil, his contract will be up and he'll be 33. Are you going to pay him a premium price at age 33 to come back?
Probably.
You think you would? Okay. I would lean towards maybe not, but they could.
If he's still showcasing this pass protection, it's going to be real hard for me to move on for Laramie Tunsil. And I've said it time and time again.
Okay.
I don't care how many false starts he has. Okay. Knowing that he is an anchor there and protecting CJ Stroud, I'm willing to keep Laramie Tunsil here for the long term. And, you also got to think, man, he's been here for what, 5, now going on 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
He might just end up retiring in Houston Texans when it's all said and done, and, be, probably one of your best trades to ever happen to you.
It's possible. I'll take that argument. In 2 years,
last forever.
In 2 years, in 2 years, he might still be good enough to pay him top dollar to anchor down that left side. That's fine. Nobody else on this offensive line am I saying, hey, they're going to be a Houston Texan in 5 years.
Fair, absolutely.
So even if you are keeping Laramie Tunsil, you're going to have to replace Tytus Howard. You're probably going to have to replace. You're going to have to replace Shaq Mason. We know Kenyon Green's not a part of the future. So that's why I think it is a premium on start solidifying This is the first time now. Well, not the first time, but now D'Amico Ryan is going to be able to draft and establish who his offensive line is. And I think now that you've got your new OC, you've got a new offensive line coach, it's the perfect time to start getting some young guys, teaching them this system and breeding them in this system. You've brought up multiple times, and I've seen mock to the Texans multiple times, Tyler Booker out of
Mhm.
Alabama. We know that D'Amico Ryans love to draft him some Alabama boys. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think the type of scheme that they run, um, he fits. I've also seen Josh Simmons of Ohio State. He's a tackle that you could play at guard for now, maybe slide the tackle later. Our good friend Lance Zierlein, who does a lot of work for NFL Network and NFL.com, he mocked the Texans trading up in the to number 16 with Arizona to draft Kelvin Banks Jr., the guard slash tackle out of Texas. That's how important he feels like getting this offensive line fixed is, that they actually move up. And in that mock draft at 25, he actually has Arizona taking Luther Burden III, a wide receiver. So the Texans, knowing they could get a receiver at 25, he's of the opinion that they would still move up and try to solidify this offensive line. I think there's an argument to be made for it, man. Um, Obviously, what worries me about drafting another young person is unless you know that they are day one starter and that they're going to be in that position for years to come. We've talked about it. The Texans have invested a lot in this offensive line already.
Mhm.
So, the same thing that worried me about having another offensive coordinator with not much experience. Now you're going to have another offensive lineman with not much experience. And unless he's just a dog, like day one, you know he's that guy, it is a little bit of a risk. But I mean, that's the same with any rookie. So I just feel like the offensive line is something that if D'Amico Ryans doesn't get it fixed in the next few years, it could cost him his job. And that's just how I feel about it.
Mm, mm. You think if he messes up with this first round pick, it'll cost him his job?
No, I think if he doesn't get the offensive line fixed in the next 3 years and they continue to struggle and the Texans continue to struggle because of a bad offensive line, they're gonna be looking at Nick Caserio, they're gonna be looking at D'Amico Ryans like, hey, you guys
There.
we talked about how we shouldn't evaluate D'Amico's tenure until his third or fourth year. Well, by his third or fourth year, if this offensive line's not fixed, people are gonna be looking at him sideways and looking at Nick
We're gonna be
Caserio
looking
sideways
at
as
Nick
well.
first, really, I
Yeah, for
believe,
sure, for sure.
but if they did go your route, bro, and they went with someone like a Tyler Booker, I don't know how I can be excited about that. I've been complaining about this offensive line. We've been complaining about this offensive line since week 4.
Mhm.
What Pro Football Network has to say about Tyler Booker. If you're looking for a sturdy anchor at guard who can dish out punishment as well as he can absorb it, Tyler Booker is your guy. With a low center of gravity and a thick, well proportioned frame, Booker is a very tough to move at the point of attack. He is powerful. His powerful lower half helps him neutralize power Russians along the interior, and his flexibility helps him maximize his power. I've seen a lot of people mock Tyler Booker to the Houston Texans, but what I don't know if you know anything about the RAS score and how that is used to grade these prospects. So if a player has a high RAS score,
Mhm.
that's the player that you want on your team. Tyler Booker's RAS score was 3.93. Another offensive lineman who had a pretty bad RAS score was Kenyon Green. And we know how that turned out. But when I do more research on this RAS score, I'll get a better idea of how they grade these young prospects. But, Tyler
Man.
Booker out of Alabama, that excites me. Someone like a um where is he at? A Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State. Maybe not in the first round, in the second round. He is, their offensive tackle, but is projected to go to guard. Had a very, very nice senior bowl. John Crumpler from the Texans Wire was in attendance raving about him. I wouldn't mind seeing, the Texans invest into their offensive line, but I will give you this, Nick, and me and Harley just brought it up on Bleacher Report. When you see who the Houston Texans had their visits with, The
Hmm.
two positions that were the highest, and they actually were tied for first, were wide receiver, and I'm gonna let you guess the second one. What was the second one?
Safety,
Running back.
running back. Okay.
Running back. And when you look at who the Houston Texans have met with, you look at guys like Amarian Hampton out of North Carolina, Travion Henderson out of Ohio State. I could see the Houston Texans selecting a running back in the second round. I can't remember the
Yeah.
last time we put in high draft stock in a running back. I believe it was Deontay Foreman out of Texas, the third round selection in the Deshaun Watson
Yeah.
draft year. But dude, running back will get my juices flowing. Last year we were talking about Isaac Guerrero from Louisville. Unfortunately, he went to the San Francisco 49ers and had a pretty respectable season for them.
Hmm.
But I think the first three picks should be offensive heavy. So if it's wide receiver, running back, guard, I'll take it. If it's guard, running back, wide receiver, I'll take it. I mean, either way, I think the Houston Texans need to invest heavily into their offense this season. Hell, I'll say even next season, because their defense, man, it's set.
Yeah.
Your pieces are there. If you lock up Derek Stingley this offseason, realistically, man, you don't have to worry about any big piece until you have to worry about Jalen Petre's contract coming up, but your next big piece to think about is Will Anderson.
I'm glad you brought that up because how surprised would you be if they went defense in the first round and maybe drafted like a Malachi Banks at safety? Because I don't know if you're going to want to bring back Petrie when you got Will Anderson Jr. You're going to have CJ Stroud's contract coming up. You're going to have to start getting cheaper on the defensive side of the ball. What are your
Thing about
thoughts?
Jalen Petre is I don't think he's going to cost you a lot because of how horrible his year 2 was.
Okay.
His season cut short in year 3, due to injury. I mean, hell, at one point in this offseason, last offseason, where we're talking about, dude, is Jalen Petre going to be, on the 53-man roster based on how bad his year 2 was? Malachi Starks is probably the best safety in this class. Safety, I think, is a need, but not a glaring need
Okay.
for the Houston Texans. If you were going to go defense, and what about the defensive tackle spot? Tyleek Williams out of Ohio State, Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss, Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. There's going to be a lot of defensive tackles available to you in those late teens, 25 range, where exactly the Houston Texans are. I could see them going defensive tackle, right? We saw what the Philadelphia Eagles did to the Kansas City Chiefs with a dominant front four.
Yeah.
The Houston Texans have two dominant edge rushers in Will Anderson Jr. and Daniil Hunter. Getting a Derek Harmon or a Kenneth Grant, Deion Walker out of Kentucky, I mean, would just be nasty.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I tell you what, man, it's exciting to think about. There's so many possibilities, and we'll be doing a lot of speculation between now and the time the draft comes. I think in our next episode, we should probably discuss a little bit of free agency because that's obviously going to probably have some type of effect on what they end up doing in the draft. So I think the next time we get together, we
Yeah, I
can
think we're
probably.
like 7 days away.
What's that?
I think we're like 7 days away.
Yeah. Wait, man, dude. Time is flying, bro.
That's what I'm saying, bro. Before you know it, we're gonna be in the draft, and then it's gonna be training camp. Then the next thing you know, it's gonna be ready for week 1, which is why, dude, I'm surprised. I'm not surprised, but there's not a lot of excitement this offseason surrounding this team.
Yeah. I kind of like that though, man, to be honest with you, because no, think about how we were feeling last season.
How could you not feel that way?
ESPN was telling us we were going to the Super Bowl. We were the next best team to beat the Chiefs. And a lot of us sipped that Kool-Aid, man, and it might have been a little bit too soon. So I kind of think this Texans team thrives under the radar a little bit. I think they can win this draft if they do it the right way. And right now I'm suggesting the argument for picking an offensive lineman. I'm presenting the argument for maybe looking for a wide receiver later. But at the end of the day, the Houston Texans, they're the experts. They've forgotten more football than I know. I trust DeMeco Ryans. I trust Nick Caserio so far because they haven't given me a reason not to. it would just, we're talking about right now, like you said, what would excite us? It would excite me to see a quality offensive lineman added to this team. Honestly, it would excite me to see a quality wide receiver added to this team because I'm honestly not sure about Tank Dell, man. Like, is he even going to be playing football at a high level ever again?
I don't know.
After his 2 injuries? Like you said, it's probably going to cost quite a bit of money and have a lot of drama surrounding bringing in Stephon Diggs. I think it is time for this team to start preparing for when they have to pay some of these great draft picks that they've made. And that means you're going to have to draft smart. So I'm hoping to see an offensive lineman. I won't be mad at a wide receiver. I think I told you before we went on, I actually think they should probably go wide receiver too. I just wanted to present the argument for offensive linemen, but
and I wouldn't be mad at your argument, man. If they go offensive line, I'm like, okay, okay, your priority was protecting CJ, which is, I cannot be mad at that whatsoever.
All right, April 24th is the draft. April 24th. Okay, yeah, man. So we're getting close.
What are you doing for the draft?
It's a good question. I wanted to talk to you about that, man. Maybe we should do a draft party. Maybe we should.
Well, we got I'm not gonna announce it yet, but we got something cooking.
You got something cooking? All right.
We got some cooking at a little Dave and Buster's.
Okay. That's a good teaser. Don't give the people everything at once. Yeah, don't give the people everything at once. That's a good little teaser. I like that. Yeah, we'll have to discuss it. At the end of the day, I'm glad you brought up the Eagles because we talked about this in our last episode right after the Super Bowl. What the Eagles did is they immediately addressed what their weaknesses were, and it got them to the Super Bowl, and it got them to win the Super Bowl. They had a very, comparing the Texans, a lot of hype and excitement going into this season. I would say they probably underperformed what everybody hoped they would, and that was the Eagles 2 years ago. Coming off of a Super Bowl appearance, they were supposed to be dominating the league again, and they did not because the defensive side of the ball was not as good as they thought it was going to be. So they immediately addressed that in free agency, in the draft, and I want the Texans to do the same, like you said, on the offensive side of the ball, though, because the offensive side was not as good as we thought it should be. I think a new play caller hopefully will help. And then you just got to get the talent, man. You got to get the talent going. So I'm looking forward to it, man. We will do. Let's talk a little bit. I don't know. There's some free agents that are still out there that I think the Texans should take a look at. Maybe they'll start doing that after the draft, but we can talk about it next week, man. And I'm looking forward to that. Are we going to do, I know with your new work schedule, pull the curtain back. We're having a meeting in front of everybody right now. Are we going to be able to do the video for your channel on a weekly basis?
Yeah. Like I said, we just got to figure out the day. That's it.
Okay.
Then we'll
cool.
be able to.
Well, I look forward to doing that too, man. I enjoy doing this show with you. It's one of my favorite things to do. It's been a pleasure to get to 43 episodes, working on episode 44. So I want to thank all of you guys who are watching us on ESPN right now. Remember, don't forget to follow Ruben at 713 Houston Sports. I will leave his links in the description. You can find me at Houston Sports State of the Union podcast. We will drop this video and we will see. We'll try to make an announcement via socials when we will be doing Twin Toros on Ruben's channel. But if you subscribe and you hit that notification bell, then you won't miss a damn thing. Ruben, what you got before we get out of here, baby?
Man, we just got a lot of draft content coming up, a lot of free agency content coming up. H-Town to I'm happy to be back.
Absolutely. Well, you guys have a good one. We will see you next time. In the meantime, I want you to stay 10 toes down for the H. We love you and good night.